schedule because of the IBC thing. But yeah, thank you for being here. So I think maybe we can start a minute so that I can share my screen. And also, please mute your mic. Yeah, mute your mic. Unless maybe if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand and unmute. Okay, so we can start. So today's event, we are going to look at getting started with React.js. As I said, this is an introductory session. Sorry about that. I don't know that is. So please mute your mic, please. So as I was saying, today's session we're going to look at getting started with React.js. Basically, this is an introductory session on those people interested in. Who is that? Sorry about that. Please mute your mic. And maybe Dennis, you can help me with that. And I know you have access to it, and unmute that person. Okay, so as I said, today's session is an introductory session on React.js. We are going to take a look at how to use React.js in your web development project and how to leverage its container pattern. So the first thing that I want us to talk about is basically the definition of React.js. What do I mean when I say React.js? Basically, to simplify it, it's a component-based JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It's used to build single-page application, and it allows us to create reusable UI components. So don't worry. Basically, we're going to take a look at the theory part, and then at the end, we're going to do a small project with React. But so from my definition here, there are three components. There are three items that I want us to fully understand. One of it is a component and a single page application. Those two, we will take a look at them later in this session. But the other item, which is really important for us to understand, is a library. And if you've been to an interview, for example, a front-end role or a full stack role, there's this common question that you'll be asked. Differentiate between a library and a framework. So for my session, I usually like it to be so informal. So I do this by asking you guys questions. So I know some of you have experience like with React.js. So I'm going to direct this question to you guys. Anybody to try and tell me the difference between a library and a framework? You can just unmute and very fast, like tell me. Anyone? Humphrey, can you try the difference between a library and a framework? Anyone to try?
Okay. So let me take a try at it. So
Okay.
I think libraries, the major difference between a library and a framework is that our framework basically provides a foundation upon which a developer can build application for specific platforms. And a library is basically a set of functions and classes which make work easier for building things.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. Another person with a different answer, or maybe I can give my definition. Okay. Awesome. I hope you heard what Derek was trying to say. So for me, I usually have this simplified like explanation. It's so simple. So for me, I usually think about it like this. I say a library. This is basically a software that you add into your code. Then a framework. This is basically a software that you add your code into it. I hope you've gotten the point.
Those, as you indicated.
Yeah, so I said that a library is a software that you add into your code. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you are working on a project that needs Google Map integration. So obviously you can't build it from scratch. You need an external library, which Google Map provides, maybe an API or something like that. So what you will do is you're going to integrate that library and add it into your code. So basically that's my definition of a library. But for a component, not a component, for a framework, it's basically a software which you add your code into it. An example of this can be a framework like Angular. Angular is so verbose, like it contains all the boilerplate and all the tools that you need. You don't have to like make decision patterns, like design decisions with it, the state management decision. It's all inbuilt. So the only thing that you need to add in Angular is basically your code and your the programming like logic into it. So with those two definitions, there's a reason why JavaScript, why React.js is a library and not a framework. So the main how I see it is like the main function of React is it provides you with this library called virtual DOM. So that's how I see it for me. And we're going to look at it like later. So here I'm saying that it's a library, of course, I said that. A lot of people nowadays like to compare it with the framework because it has really like expanded a lot. We have scaffolds like Create React App that have like make it a good argument to say like React is a framework because we have this scaffold that comes with all the tools that you need. Like you don't have to make those design decision. You don't have to make the state management decision. Everything is like comes with that boilerplate scaffold. But my argument is usually that React is a library because it's basically a view library because it only gives us access to the virtual DOM and then leaves us with all the decisions that we need to do. To simplify what I'm saying is React is basically opinionated. Like you are the one in charge of making those decisions, the state management decision, the file structure decision, and everything. The only thing that React provide is the virtual DOM and the render process. The next thing maybe we can take a look at is why should you use React? We've taken a look at the definition of React. So why should you use React? One advantage of React is its simplicity compared to Angular. If you've done Angular, you'll know this for sure. It's so simple because it has this component-based approach, which is well-defined. And if you know JavaScript, you don't have basically to learn another language. So if you're very good at JavaScript, which is a prerequisite for learning React, it's going to be simple for you. And then it's easy to learn. Literally, you can take, to get like a basic understanding of React, it can take you like a week. Basic understanding, not like a deep dive. Another thing is it has this native approach, like you can use it to make iOS, Android, and web development application. And then we have this concept of data binding, which I don't know if we will have a time to take a look at it. So React uses one-way data binding, which is really important. It makes it so like it increases basically its performance and like it's easy also to test. So I know we have like other benefits, but I wanted us to like have this 5 as the core one, this 6 as the core one. So what companies use React? We have a lot of company actually, but the one that I know is Facebook, which is the company that built React. And then we have Instagram, we have Netflix, I think. I don't know if I'm correct with this, and also Reddit and Airbnb. So you can see how like famous it is. What are the prerequisites to getting started with React? As I said, you need to have like a basic understanding of JavaScript and HTML and CSS. From our previous session, I know we had a session on HTML and CSS, and then last week we had a session in JavaScript. So I hope by now, like you have this fundamental knowledge of JavaScript. So if you don't have like a fundamental knowledge of JavaScript, what I can advise you is we have a recording of last week's session in our WhatsApp group. So take a look at it. And then because this meeting is also recorded, maybe you can take a look at this meeting later. So for JavaScript, there are some concepts that you need to understand. Some of the concepts are the newer ES6 concepts, such as the this keyword, the filter, the map, and reduce method. So take a look at those concepts. And also, yeah, so basically those are the theories. I'm going very fast because I want us to like start coding right away. I don't want us to stick into the theories. So if you have any question, please feel free to unmute and ask it. So how can you like create your first React application? It's actually very easy. You have two options. First, you can create a React application from scratch. This is by just installing the React library and doing all your file structure and configuration by yourself. That's the hardest part. The easiest way is by using a scaffold or a boilerplate. One common scaffold or boilerplate is the create React app, which is, I think, the most popular one. So with Create React app, it basically gives you access to all the tools that you may need in your React application. Some of these tools include Babel, Webpack, ESLint, Jest, and many others. It also comes with a prefix file structure, so you don't have to take a lot of time like making that decision. So maybe we can start coding from now. I hope you see my screen. So for you to use that scaffold, Create React app, basically you can follow the following step. You need to install it. So I think what we can do is just what you can do on your side, just navigate basically to the directory that you want to store your React application. For my case is the project. And then you can type in this command to install Create React app in your application. So npx create React app, and then have like the folder name for your application. For my case, I can call it for this project, I want us to build a to-do app, so we can just call it a to-do app, and then just click enter. So npx is basically a type of, I think npm executable file, something like that, that makes it possible for you to install a lot of tools at the same time. So it makes it possible for you to install React, React DOM, React Script, and the Create React app templates. So it's going to take some time. I hope you are following along and also like doing the installation part. So it usually takes a lot of time. It depends with the speed depends with your internet connection. So for my case, I had already like installed it beforehand so that we can do this like very fast. So I'll just navigate to it. I think it's client, and then we can just like open it. Yeah. So as I wait like for you guys to install React, and maybe you can also take a look at some of the theories about React. I'll share the installation part. Yeah, so as I wait for you guys to install, maybe we can take a look at some of the theory concept about React. So there are some concepts that you need to understand when learning React. So one of them is the component. We have the props, we have the state, the lifecycle, hooks, the sex, and the virtual DOM. And we'll briefly go through them like really fast, and then we will go back to our project. So for the virtual DOM, remember I told you like the main reason I usually call React a library, it's because it provides us with this virtual DOM. So I know you know this. I believe in our JavaScript session we had a chance to take a look at the DOM, which stands for the Document Object Module. It's basically a structured representation of all the HTML elements that are present in a web page or application. It contains like the nodes of each HTML element. So if you have like the H1, the div, the body, and everything, it has the like a hierarchy of nodes representation of it. Yeah. So for our case, we said that React like provides us with this virtual DOM. So what's the difference between the real DOM and the virtual DOM? The difference is that the virtual DOM provides us with like a node tree that lists element and their attribute and contents as objects and properties. So it makes it easy for React to keep track of all the activities like going on without manually like altering the document object module. So it's basically like a copy of the DOM, but it has like a different structure whereby the attributes and the elements are represented as objects and properties, which makes it easy for us like to keep track of what changed in our page. So basically that's a brief overview of the virtual DOM. I'll provide links so that maybe you can have a deep dive into it. It's really interesting to see what they have done with it. And then another important concept in React is JSX. So with React, we don't just write like HTML code, like just like that. With React, we have what we called, I think JSX represent JavaScript XML. Yeah. It allows us to write HTML inside like in JavaScript. Like you can have JavaScript and HTML at the same time. So it makes it easy for us like to leverage the basic HTML in our React application without complicating things. And then another important aspect we will take a look at is the component. I'm just listing them and giving a brief overview for now. And then in our project, we will have like a real understanding of them, and we'll see how we can leverage them in our project. Our component is a self-contained reusable building block of web application. I'll give you an example of our component. maybe we can take a look at this site, meetup.com. So traditionally, if you were to build a web page like this, let's say in 205 or 204, what you will do is you will have templates, HTML templates. Maybe you'll have the homepage as a template where you will basically have everything here on the same page. And then maybe if you navigate to another route, you will have another template. So let's say like the notification or the profile, yeah, or the notification. So if you navigate to another route, traditionally, what you will do is you will have to create like a template for that route. So you will have like numerous HTML files representing the template for the different route. So you will have like a notification.html, then you will have like a home.html. So that was the traditional way. With our React, we have this container pattern where we assume that everything on our web page is a container. Like we can divide everything here on this web page into containers and handle them like differently. This makes it possible for us to reuse the components and also for collaboration. So you may have this notification as a different component, and then you can have the calendar as a different component, and then maybe this list items here as individual components. So what you will do is maybe you can define a component for this and then reuse them for this one, because if you take a look at them, they look alike. So basically that's the essence of React.js, assuming that everything is a container. So from this illustration here, you can see that we have divided our website into components. We have here the navigation, we have maybe the logo, then we have the different sections here. So we'll take a look at it later. We have two different types of component. Traditionally, we used to have the class-based component, which was really used like in, I believe in every project, we were using classes like literally everywhere. But nowadays, I think with the React 18, we are moving toward like a functional component architecture where we don't have life cycles. So the main reason we use class-based component is because we were trying to keep track of the different life cycle in a React like render process. But with functional component, everything is handled. So to simplify is basically with the class-based component, we use class, and then with the functional, we use functions. Another aspect we will take a look at is props, which allow us to pass information from one component to another. Basically, it's like a static global variable or object. We'll take a look at it in our project. Another thing is state. So a state in React is a JavaScript object that stores a component like dynamic data. It's basically like how can I say it? A local storage, something like that. Yeah. Another new aspect of React that was introduced with the new version of React is what we call hooks. They let us use state and other React features without writing a class. They're basically trying to replace the like React lifecycle, and then maybe we can handle everything with hooks. So we will take a look at it later. So I think we have finished with the theory. Maybe now we can start working on our project. Someone is saying communication is poor here. Maybe to confirm, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, for me, I can hear you clearly. I think the problem is on her side. For me, you are very audible, clear, and the presentation is very well. So I think, Joanna, you want to check your connection or something of the sort, because I can even see even Madenge is confirming that we can hear. So please continue, Ali.
Okay, so now to our project. I actually hated the theory part. Sorry for that. I love the coding part, not the theory part. So for the project, I said we are going to try and sorry about that. I'm having issues with my mic. Okay, as I was saying, what I'm trying to do is I want us like to create a basic to-do list application. I know it's so cliche, but I really love that idea of building a small project when learning something. That's the best way of learning anything. Just create something. Yeah. So I hope by now you are able to install the Create React app, the scaffold. So if you are able, you can start following. So maybe what I can do on your side, what you can do is navigate to that folder that you for our application. For my case, I'm actually in that folder, so I can open Visual VS Code. Yeah, basically this is the overview of a Create React app application. I'll briefly take you through it so that you can understand it really fast. So we have the node module folder. Basically, this is where you have all the dependency for your application and all the third-party libraries that you're going to install. And then we have the public folder. So here, this is where you will have all the files that the client or the public will see. So after you've compiled your React application, all the JavaScript files are going to be added here. Inside the public folder, we also have the HTML folder, which is the main starting point of your application. Someone, I don't know who that is. Please unmute. Please mute. Yeah, thank you. So as I was saying, we have the index.html, which is basically the entry point of your application for the public. And inside it, we only have, if you look in the body, we don't have like any JavaScript here. We only have like this one div with an ID of root. We'll take a look at it later. So, and then we have the logo. So this one don't matter that much. We have the manifest, which is really important if you are trying to create a PWA application, a progressive web app application. Then we have the robot.txt file, which is really important for SEO, the search engine optimization. Those one, don't worry about them for now. And then here we have the README file, which basically is markdown for a brief documentation of your application here, so you can try and edit it. And then we have the package.json and the package lock.json. Basically, this is a schema that contains all the dependency and their version. This is really important because let's say that you've deployed your application to a cloud hosting platform. You will not deploy it with the node module. We will see that later. So what's going to tell the cloud hosting platform the dependency that your application need is this, the package.json and the lock. So I said that the node module, you won't like deploy it on your, for example, GitHub. So this is because it's so huge. Usually nakwanga kitukaa like 8 GB or 4 GB, depends with the size of your project. So you usually add it on the .git ignore file. Basically, this is a file that tells Git to ignore the node module, the testing files, the production file, and basically the environment files. So any file that you don't want to push to GitHub, you will need to add it here. And then the main entry point of our React application is the CRC folder. Here we have all the files that you may need when basically creating a React application. We have the app.css, the app.js, and the index.js. There's some files here that you won't need when starting out, but later you may need them. One of them is the test. So for now, because our application is going to be like a really small, it's going to be to do up. We don't have to overcomplicate things. So we can maybe remove some of these files. So we can start with the test. So you can remove the setup test and then the vitals also. And also we can remove the CSS. Not yet. I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah, maybe you can leave it at that for now. And also, what we can do is we can try and run our application. I know we've removed some files, so maybe I can just undo them and just see how the scaffold like looks by default. So what we can do, if you go to the package.json, we have the different scripts here that are going to help you in your application. One of them is the start script. So if you need to start your application, what you need to do is run that script. So you can do that by just running npm start. Then it's going to run this script, React script start. It usually takes some time, so we'll just wait and see. So basically in the background, what we are doing is we are starting the development server. It takes some time. Yeah, so basically this is the default overview when you scaffold like a create React app. This is what you will see. And the reason you are seeing this is because we have this boilerplate code inside our app.js. Our app.js is basically our entry point for our application. If you try and follow, maybe I can show you the overview of how everything is running here. On our HTML file, we saw that we have this div with an ID of root. If you go to index.js, you will see here what we are doing is we are rendering our root here on React. So here we have access to our root, and then we are basically rendering it here. We are rendering like our app here into this root. Sorry for that. So we are rendering up into this root. So basically our entry point means everything is here, and we can prove it by I'm trying to split the screen. So we can try and edit something here, maybe say welcome to today's
My impatience ni mbaya zaidi.
then if you save your code, you're going to see the changes have reflected here. So that means that the starting point for application is the app.js. So all the changes that you may need, you need to add them here. So basically that's the brief overview of all the files that we have when we scaffold the create React app. So the next thing maybe we can try and do is work on the next thing we can do is maybe we can try and work on our project. So we'll do that by basically removing all the boilerplates that we have here. So we can do that by just removing them. And then we will have like a blank page here. So how can I say this? Ideally, when working like on a big project, you won't add everything on the app.js. Basically, the app.js, this is the point where you will do all the routing. But because our application is really small, and I'm just trying to show you a brief overview on how to use React, we'll just use this approach. But this is just a disclaimer that big applications are not written like this. So what you can do, maybe you can have something like a p tag, then we can have task list. So we have it there. Then the next thing we can have, remember, during the theory part, I talked about the JSX format. So basically, this is the JSX format whereby we are able to add HTML into JavaScript. And I also talked about what we call components. And I said these are reusable, I think, containers in a React application. And I'll show you how to create a component. So one thing we can start, we can basically have a component where we will store all our tasks and maybe call it a task list, and then create maybe a folder where we can store all our components. So we can have something like our components like that, and then have a file called task list JSX. Then, so another tip maybe I can give you is you don't have like to write everything in React. We have a lot of tools that you can leverage. One of them is this extension, which is called, I think, ES6 React, something like that. I think this one. Yeah. I don't know if it's that one. This one. Yeah, this one. So try and install it. I'll show you its importance in a few minutes. So just share the link here. That one. So install that extension. The reason I'm telling you to install that extension, it's because it has this code completion feature whereby you don't have to write the boilerplate for writing a component. You just have to give it like an extension like RFC, which will basically give you a React functional component. And then if you type something like RFCE, it's going to have a React functional component which you can export. And then if you click enter, you'll have everything like that. So basically, this is the syntax of a React component, whereby we're going to import React, and then we will have a function with which returns like everything that you need in that component. And then, so basically this is our component. And then if we go back to app.js, we can import that component. We call it, I think it's task list, something like that. And then just click enter. Let's remove this one. So basically in our app.js, the only thing that we have is we've imported this component. And then if we go inside that component, the only thing that we have is we have a div with, maybe we can have a paragraph, task list, and then we can have, let's say, another paragraph. So this can be task list 1. And then we can have task list 2. Then we can have task list 3. Yeah, so you can see here we have them. And then in our application, we may need an input field where we can add like the task that we need. So very fast. I hope by now you have like a brief understanding of HTML and CSS. That's the reason I'm not like explaining that much, because I know you know them. So for input, I think we need to add an input or type text. And then we can have like 2 buttons, one for adding a task, add a task, then another one for removing all the completed tasks. So we can have remove completed task. Basically, this is how it looks. I'm not going to concentrate much on the UI because you can do that like on your own. This can be like your homework for today. After this session, try and rebuild this project and then maybe add some UI with it, like CSS, add some styling into it. But for now, I just want to give you like a brief overview of how we can use React and get started like really quick. So yeah, so basically this is how our application looks. We have a component here, the task list, and then we have the input field, we have the 2 buttons here. So another aspect that I talked about in React is the state. We said that a state is basically a way of storing information inside an object in a React application. For our application here right now, it's so static and we are not leveraging the power of React. The only way of leveraging the power of React in our application is by using the hooks and the method and the function that React provides us with. One of these hook that will help us like leverage the state, the local state in React is what we call the React use state. So basically, the React use state will allow us to store basically our task information. So the syntax for it is like this. Basically, we just call React dot use state, which is a function, and it will return what we call like I don't know if it's an object. Yeah, it will return an object, and then we can just destructure the object and get access to the. I'll just import React. I'm getting an error that React is not imported, so you need to import React. And then, so if you call the useState method, it's going to provide you with 2 things if you destructure it. The item, for example, for this case, it can be the task list 1, the task list 2, the 3, and also a function for updating that item. So for our case, we can just call it to-dos. And then we can have a setter function called set to-dos. So yeah, basically what we have here, we have the state, the use state hook, which gives us, if you destructure it, it gives us access to the item which we want to store in our local state, and also the function that will enable us to update that local state. So for our case, what we can do is, instead of in our task list component, instead of basically having to add these things like manually, we can do this dynamically by taking input from the user. We can do this by, I don't know how we can do this. Maybe anybody to try, because I know Nyamaza and I don't know if you're following. I see Joan is saying, please repeat again. So I don't know which part. So maybe you can unmute and I'll try to repeat again. John, your question here. Which point should I repeat?
From the first component, the first list.
This part here.
The task list. Then they use page.
Okay. So for this part, I said that maybe you can unmute. You can mute. So for this part, what I'm trying to say is for application, if you take a look at it, we have like static information. For us to add dynamic information, like information that changes, add information from the user, we need to leverage the power of React. React provides us with hooks. This makes it possible for us to keep track of these items in a local storage, not a local storage, in a local state. And one way of doing this is by using this React useState hook. And we can do that by basically calling react.useState. If we call it, it's going to give us access to an object. And that object, if you destructure it, so if you did like if you followed up on the the JavaScript event, I hope they had some time to take a look at destructuring, which is a ES6 feature. It's a new feature. So if you destructure it, our object, you'll get access to two things. One of them is the item, and another thing is the setter function. For our case, we can just call it set to do. So these to-dos will represent all these items, the task list 1, 2, 3. It's basically like we are building a local database, something like that. It's not a database. I don't like to use that example, but to simplify further, it's basically like a local database where we store all the to-dos here, and also we have a function of updating and removing those to-dos, updating that to-do. So for our case, we can just call it set to-dos, and then have the to-dos here.
Abubakar.
Yeah.
There is also a concern if you could zoom the code, if you could zoom VS Code.
Okay. Can you see now?
Yeah. For me, it's fine.
Okay.
I don't know about the person who asked the question, but for me, it's good.
Okay. So the next thing maybe we can do is we can. So for I want us to get input from the user. We can do that by configuring this function to have like a handler function that keeps track of when we add anything here. I don't know if I'm making sense. So we can do that by having an event on our button here. So what we can do on our button here, we can add this event called on a click. I think this event, I don't know if you are able to, Dennis, were you able to teach about this JavaScript event in our JavaScript session last week?
Unfortunately, we ran out of time, so we couldn't cover the events.
Okay. Maybe you can try and explain to them like what does it mean very fast, like 1 minute.
Okay. So basically, an event is anything that the user does on a web page. For example, if you click a button, that is an event. If you type something into an input field, that is an event. As the word denotes, an event is just anything that is happening dynamically on the page. But not fetching data. It's just what your users are doing on the page. When you click on a button, that is an event you have done. When you upload something, that is an event, and all of that. I think that is the that is the lowest I can go as far as definition of event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So for this event that we want to add here is we want to keep track of when someone clicks this button. So we can have an on-click event, and then we can create that function here. So we can do that by having handle, something like handle click, and then it's basically an anonymous function. And then it can be empty for now, and then we need to make it anonymous. The reason we are making it anonymous is because if you don't make it anonymous, whenever the React renders the page, it's going to run automatically. So for you to maybe tell this button, like it doesn't have to render this function unless it has been clicked, you need to make the function anonymous. So we can have something like handle click, something like that. I don't know if that's correct, but we'll just see. And then another thing is now we have the function here. So traditionally, if you click a button, it's going to reload the page traditionally. You won't see it, but that like a traditional activity that happens like on a web page is it will try and run the page. So what we can do is we can maybe prevent that by getting access to the event. And then we can do that by prevent something like prevent default. I don't know. Yeah. And then so now if you click, nothing happens. It doesn't reload the page. Then the next thing maybe we can do is we want to do, if you click this button, we need to save this input. For us to do that, we need to have a way of referencing the value of this input. How can we do that? The only way we can do that is by leveraging another hook of React, which is called useRef. So basically, I'll show you how we do this, how to reference something. So we want to have access to this input in our button activity here. So one way of doing this is by leveraging the useRef. So we can do that by basically having maybe like a variable called useRef, and then we can just import it, then call it useRef. So it returns a mutable reference object. And then, so now we have like a reference here defined. So maybe we can add it in our input. So we want to reference our input inside our object function. So we can do that by just adding this attribute ref and then giving it the value of input ref. So by doing that, anywhere we call the input ref, it's going to reference this input. Not this one, not this one, just this input. So maybe we can console.log and see what we are getting if we click this button. So if you add something and then we click, I don't know why we are not getting anything. I don't know if it's because we are preventing default or is it because Dennis, you can unmute. Is it because adding an anonymous function here?
No, I think everything is just well according to what I see.
It's okay. I think there was an issue, but let's reload again. So if you add anything here, then you click that button. So we now have access to this input here, and then we have access to, you see it's an object, we have access to the current. So if you want to reference that input and get the value, so you want the current reference and then we can have the value. So let's try and see if we can get the value. So maybe here I can type Abu. And then if we click our button here, we're going to get access to that value. I hope this point is clear because it was confusing for me, like when I started learning React, the reference, how to reference something. It's actually really easy. You just import this hook, and then you just define like a variable where you can store that reference, and then you just reference that variable in by using the reference attribute on that element. Yeah. So now what we can do is, so we said that what we want to do is we want when someone clicks on this button, we get access to this value and then we store it in our state. So we said a state, it's basically like a static way of storing items in a local variable, something like that. So we want to store anything that we get here somewhere. How can we do that? And now we have access to that value. So remember on our useState function, we had what we call a setter function. So a setter function will enable us to basically add items into this to do, or yeah. So if you want to add anything into this to do's, you just have to call this function. So we can do that by basically having a set to do's function. And then inside it, we need to think. So by default, our function here, to our set to do's here, it gives us access to this to do's. But by default, the to do's is usually, how can I say it? It usually has a value. It's either empty or it has like a previous value. So what we can do is we can say, maybe if you have a previous value, just take the previous value and then return. What do we return? Just destructure the previous value, like just it's going to return everything in the previous value and then add the new values. So for our case, our new value will be, maybe we can have it as a constant up here. So it can be, let's call it a to do. Is it to do? Maybe we can call it a name. And then we said we get access to the input ref, then we get access to the current, and then get access to the value. And then if we add it here, name, then I don't know how we can. So what we can do, I think, we can, I did want to do this, but I don't see another way of doing it. So now what we have done is we have updated the previous to-dos, and then we have added our new to-do. So the next thing maybe we can do is we can remember I talked about props, which I said I don't know the definition there, but so we said it allows us to pass information from maybe one container to another. So for our case, we can pass these to-dos to our task list component and render them here. So we can do that by on our task list. If you want to add a props, so what you can do is maybe you can just define the to-dos as a prop, and then the value should be the to-dos. And then inside our component here, you can have something like up there, which will represent the props that you're getting from that other component. So we are passing from this component to this component. And then here, you can just render it. So one thing I want you to note is this to-dos, it's not like a single item. It's basically an array of items. What do I mean by this? So for example, if I'm adding one item here, it's going to be stored in to-dos. And then if I add another one, it's going to be added in that to-dos. So the result we are getting, it's not one item. It's basically an array of items. So we are going to get maybe the task list 1, task list 2, task list 3 in an array. So we can't just like render it like directly. We need a way of looping through it and getting the individual items. So what we can do here, so we will get the to-dos here, and then I don't think even we need the div here. So we will get access to the to-dos, and then we can map through them. It will give us individual to-do. And then we can now return the to-do here in. So the to-do will represent basically the everything inside our application. If you go back to app.js, it's going to represent basically what we are adding here. So I was thinking maybe we can make it like an object or yeah, then we can have something like an ID, then one, and then maybe the name can be the name there. Then here, we can just, after we've like looked through it, we can have the to do, and then this is going to give us access to that individual to do object. But if we want to display maybe the name, we can have to do.name, something like that. And then now what we can try and do, if you add anything here, hello, then just click add, you're going to see up there. Then let's see if you add another thing, you're going to see down here. So it's working, like the basic implementation. I know this part of like nimeenda mbio sana, so I don't know if you have a question. Nakimbia because does anyone like have a question? Nimeenda mbio. Do you have any question that part?
Ali,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think the warning that you're getting all that red thing in the console is because maybe you are using map without using an ID. Could that be the problem?
That part sijafika. That part sijafika.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted them to see the error. And then yeah, we tackle it. Yeah. So
Okay.
maybe we can do that. So the reason I added here an ID is because the app.js, you see we are getting an error. So if you add anything here, and then we add another thing here, we are getting this error. Like each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So the way React works is to usually like keeps track of every node in the DOM. So the only way of it, the only way React will be able like to know to keep track of this or keep track of this if like this one and this one are unique. And the only way of making them unique is by having like what we call the key prop. So maybe you can start working on that. One way of doing that is we can maybe have another component here for the individual to-dos. Here, what we are doing, we're just looping and then we are rendering the name. So what you can do, maybe you can have another component here, task.js, individual task. Maybe you can rename it to JSX because that's the format that we are using. Then thanks to our extension, what we are doing, you don't have to write the whole like boilerplate. You can just write RFCE, then it's going to give you access to that. Then the next thing maybe we can do is we can import this component inside our task list component here. So what I want to do is I want our task list component to only handle the mapping part, but for the rendering the individual component, we're going to handle that separately on another component. So we can do that by just importing the task component, the individual task component. And then here, instead of rendering the p tag, we can just render our new component. You can see the nesting part that I'm doing here. It's basically to make you understand what a component is. So if you have like a task component here, what we need to pass here, maybe we can pass this to do as a prop here, and then we can display this to do here. So maybe you can say we will get a to do here, and then we will display that to do dot name there. Then on our task list component, we said that we are only handling the rendering, the mapping through part. But for the rendering the individual component, we want that part to go to our individual task component. So we can do that by passing like our to do as a prop here. Then the value can be the to do. Then another thing we can pass is we are getting this error. Then maybe I can show you. I don't know if it will work. We are getting this error. Each child in a list should have a unique key. So whenever like you map through an array in React, you need to provide like unique keys to the individual items in that array. This is because it will not be possible for React to differentiate between this item and the next item. Like React uses these key props to identify this one as the individual item and this one as the individual item. So what we can do is we can have maybe a prop called key, and then so this key should be unique. Usually on a large scale application, you will use like an external, I don't know how to call it, ID generator. Usually I think it's UUID. Yeah. So maybe you can install it. It will give you like unique keys. But because like our project is so simple, I don't see the need of us like using this NPM package. So what we can do, maybe we can assume we won't have any duplicates and maybe make the key be the name of the to do item. So I'm assuming we won't have like a duplicate, but if you have a duplicate, you're going to get an error. So for our case, now you see like we are not getting that error. But let me show you this example. Let's say we have Abu, then we have Abu again. You see we will get that error. This is because we have two children with the same key, Abu. But for now, just ignore that. I said that like in a big application, in a more like robust application, you won't do this. You will install like an external tool like the UUID, which provides like unique keys like this. So, but for now, we can just use the to-do name as the key. The next thing I want us to do, if we look at our application, if you add anything and then click add task, for UX like sake, we are seeing that our input still has this like the previous item inside it. Maybe we can try and remove it. So let's go back to our app.js, and in our handle click here, we said that what we need to do is basically just get access to the value and then set the value. Then after that, maybe we can set the value back to, I think it should be blank. I don't know if it will work. Let's see. Yeah. Assignment to constant. Yeah. I think what we can do is maybe we can just input everything, input ref, current, value, not that, and then maybe give it null instead of blank. Yeah, it now works. So basically the logic is after you click, we are going to trigger this function. And in this function, we are doing three things. We are taking note of the value. We are setting the value. After setting the value, we are going to make this value inside our input to be null. Like we don't need it here. We need it up here. And then maybe if we had another thing like taking shower, then just click add a task. Yeah, so now I think it's good UX. Another thing edge case that I'm thinking about is, let's say that the user or the client doesn't add anything here. Tunajua tu ma clients hata ukiwaambia nini, they'll just do anything. Like ukisha create something this way and then you thought it's pretty intuitive, like someone can just know you don't have to do this, the client will do the opposite from experience. So you need to tackle all the edge cases. One edge case I'm seeing is, for example, someone doesn't add a task here. Now click. You see, you're going to get an error because what we are doing is, maybe I can visualize that by, let's see. I can visualize that by, let's say we have like a checklist. So we can have something like a label. Then we can have a checklist here. Checkbox, I think. Yeah. Then we can have like the to do. I've only added like the checkbox here. Then name. Let's see how it looks. So looks like that. Maybe I can add a div so that it can be on its own page. So let's say you've added a task like that, and then if you add another task, yeah, I think it now looks somehow good. Let's say that the user adds like nothing, like I just add a task here, and then I click this button. You see, we will have this checklist here. So you need to handle like that edge case. So let's go back to our handle click. So what we need to do, we need to check if only the user like has added anything here, due to populate up here. I don't know if I'm making sense. So maybe we can handle the falsy value. So the falsy will be if the input ref current.value is empty. If it's empty, like kama haja add anything na me click that the handle, me click that button here on click, we should just, I think we should return. I don't know if it will work. Let's see. Kama sivyo will. Yeah, nothing is happening now. No, kama haja add anything, nothing is happening. Because what we are saying here is we are saying that if kama the user haja add anything inside like our input ref here, aka click this button, we should just return. Like we should execute out of this function. We should not run the next commands here. I hope I'm clear. So that is the other edge case that I think it's really important to take a look at it. I think the next item, maybe the last item, is this functionality of removing a task. So it's removing completed task. So let's say my first task of the day is eating, obviously. Then the next one is coding. Yeah. So let's say like you have a number of tasks here and you want to have this functionality whereby if you finish like a task, you will have this checkbox where you will click it to illustrate that you finished that task. At the end, you want to have this functionality of removing all the completed tasks. Like you don't need to have them here and you've completed them. So the way I'm thinking about it is we first have to have I think a functionality of knowing if a task has been checked here, like tujue kama the user may check this task here or here. And then maybe we can say, we can filter tasks zenye zijakuwa checked, something like that. And then we will populate them here. I don't know if I'm making sense. So I think the only way of doing that is basically having that functionality ya ku keep track of tasks zimekuwa checked. And if we look at our task component, we have this checkbox. And in the checkbox, the input checkbox, we usually have this property called checked. Yeah. And let's say I do true, I don't know if it will work. You will see everything is checked. And then if I do false, nothing is checked. Sindio? I think what we can do here, maybe we can have a variable that keeps track if an item has been checked or not. So here maybe we can have like a prop. Then we can do prop drilling like backwards. Because I think we will need this value of checked in our app.js, because in our app.js, this is where we are populating like these things here. So if you look at our app.js, we are populating the to-dos like from the parent is in our app.js and then the children is in the task list. So I think what you can do is I think we can prop drill from the children to the parent. So I think we can go from the task, and then we can think. No, I don't think that will work. Will it work really? Yeah. Yeah, it will work. It will work. And then we can have it here checked. Then we can have something like checked here. And basically, we are moving from task because we need this value here. So Nika tuna move upwards from our task, the last children to this one, and then I think we will have access to it here. Is it task list checked? Yeah. Then I was thinking instead of passing this, should I just first, maybe you can try and create that function of checking. And before doing that, we can also like have like a default value, like when setting our to do here. So we can do that by having something like checked here. Then we can have I think false. So that can be our default value. And then we can have a function that basically toggles it from if it's false, and then if you click it, it's going to convert it to true. And then if you click it again, it's going to convert it to false. Basically a toggler. So we can have like a helper function called toggler. Then which basically let's just create it, and then I'm thinking loud because I want you guys to chip in also. Nasioni atamki. Yeah. Dennis, I want you guys to chip in. It's cool, like it's basically an event where I'm the only one talking. I want it to be like a collaborative work also. So what I'm trying to do is I can add an ID here. And then I can get access to the item. Let's call it to do. I don't know if you are following. Is anybody following? Please, sitaki nikuwe nafanya tu peke yangu.
Yeah, we are following.
Yeah. Ndio nataka mchip in actually. So what I'm trying to do, I'm thinking loud, ndio pia mchip in. I don't know if I'm following. Let's go back to here. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to have like a prop of checking if an item has been clicked here. So if you click on it here, I know like you've clicked on it here. So I was thinking of instead of keeping track like drilling to the top, maybe we can have an on change event here, and then call it handle change. And then if I make a mistake, please correct me. I want this to be a collaborative session. Sitaki tu mimi ndo nikuwe naongea. And then we can basically keep track of mtu akiclick this one. So if I click this one, I want to keep track of it here. What am I keeping track of? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, you're making sense.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think
so this part
I think
this part ndo itachanganya watu, and that's the reason I'm going extremely slow, because I'll do some changes and then itakaa nika like magic. So that's the reason I keep like referencing kama. So basically what I'm doing here, I want to keep track mtu aki. So now if you want something, and then if you click on it, I want to keep track if you have clicked on it. And the only way of doing this is by using this event on your input, and then having a function that keeps track of it. Inside the function, I want to have like a table, which if okay click, it's true. Okay click, it's false. Okay click 10, it's true. Okay click, it's false. So I need a tagler here. Ya could change the values. So the only way of getting this tagler, and the reason I want this tagler is because it's to keep track of this. And the reason I want to keep track of this is because I want a way of removing completed task. And the only way of knowing completed task is by knowing tasks zenye zimekuwa checked. I hope I'm making sense. So I need to have like a tagler on my parent here. So hapa ndio nitakuwa na that tagler. So I can just call it const tagler. And then I need to pass that tagler to my child here. So I think we can, where is it? Here. We can have like a tagler. Then pass it. This process of passing props from one component to another, it's called prop drilling. It's not a good design pattern, but for now, when starting out, don't worry about that. With time, you're going to learn about design patterns such as container patterns, kuna composition pattern. There are a lot of patterns in React. So for now, just use prop drilling. And then, so I said, we don't need to track the check. We can track of the tagler. And then, so inside like our last child, we have access to the tagler here. And I said, what we are trying to do is we want a way of keeping track of what has been clicked. So here, I think what you can do is you can just call the tagler, and then what should we pass inside? I think we can pass. So we can basically have here something like completed. So by default, completed should be false. Then on our task, so what we can do is we can check the to do. Then is it complete or completed? It's completed. Then you can have something like completed. So if you click this one, it's going. Let's see if it works. And let's see if it works. The only way of knowing is by having it here, then say completed. Let's log it. I don't know if it's possible. I'm just like nigezwa hapa. I don't know if it's possible to be, yeah, it's possible. So by default, it's false. And then if you click it, if you click it, equal true. Yeah. So the next thing we can do here is go to our app.js. So we are saying here we will get like the completed. And then what do we want us to do? We want to set. Are you setting the stage already? Don't know. Let's try. Then we can return the previous, and then we can just then we can just reverse our value. So here what we are doing, we are getting access to the completed. So for our case, it will false. And then we are updating like our tagla, our state equal true. Sasa the completed equal true. So let's see if it works. So it's false, and then if we click each child, I'm getting this error. Why? Wait, what's happening? What's really happening? I don't know if you are following anyone. If you see an error, please unaweza nisaidia. So I think the issue is here. This tagla. Maybe mnisaidie the implementation ya tagla. So basically what I'm trying to do, ninataka mtu akiclick completed ikuwe false. So should I return? What should I do? I don't know if you are following.
Yeah, I'm following.
I want us to think through. Like I have access to the current. What I want to do, I thought that Nikki update the value. I'm saying that think about it. Like I have a tagla, so I have a tagla which I'm keeping track if the current item is completed. If I click the current item, I need to update the value of the tagla completed. Kama ilikuwa ni false, ikuwe ni true. What should I do? Here I was thinking, my way of thinking, if I add like a set to do's, which basically gives us access to all the values in our state, and then if we return the previous item, and then we just update the completed here, ikuwe the inverse of our value up there. So for example, kama hapo itakuwa false, we will set it to ukiweka this point here, like ukiweka exclamation there, we're basically negating our value. So I was thinking it will work. So let us try. Naona I work, because if I do, I'm getting true, but it works, but I'm also adding something here below it. I don't know if you get my point. Yo, Dennis. Okay, so maybe we can try and debug. Let's try a different example and just try and see what we are doing here. So let us look at our, I don't know if it's this one. So we have a tagline here. And then what we are doing, we're passing the value of completed. I don't
Ali,
think that, yeah.
I'm not sure. Okay, but I think on that checkbox, if you
Yeah.
pass that if you pass that change handler, I think when implementing that change handler, it's supposed to have that one parameter of the event object or something of the sort, where they can destructure the current state of the checkbox, I think.
Atunasema, abu repeat juu sijakusikia.
For example, we usually do when we are handling change, when we are implementing that particular function.
Yeah.
We usually have one parameter, the event, basically the event object as a parameter, which you usually destructure to get the value and all of that. Would that be the problem?
I don't think so. I'm actually thinking, Nika, I used a long way. Like, I don't think it's there's a reason for me to pass this tagler from the child to the parent. I was thinking if I pass it here, if I pass it to the parent, it will be easier for me to manipulate it when implementing this function here to remove completed task. I don't know if you are following.
Yeah, I'm following.
Yeah, so basically hivyo ndo nilikuwa nataka kufanya. But sasa I'm thinking, nimeget your idea. So I was thinking, instead of, I'm trying to implement like another way. Instead of passing on our handle change the completed, can I pass the ID? Then I know what item I'm updating. Sindio? Then let's see what I'm getting here. And then let's see what I'm getting here. And then maybe step by step, try and see. So what we can do is we can do a bool, and then just click add a task. Then when you click it, you're getting one, the ID. So it works. I think backup tuko sawa. And then the next thing, so now I know the item and then make click. So the next thing maybe will be, I found a way of like getting that item, that individual item, and then updating its value of complete. I don't know if you're following. I think that will work. Like
Let's try that.
Like if I do this, now I have access to, let's say, to do. And then to do ID. See, it's ID that I'm passing. This will work. Nataka ikuwe like a collaborative effort. So mmenyamaza, I'll just do it. All to do's, and then we can just restructure everything in our local state. And then what we can do is we can get access to this to do item that I want to toggle. So I think that's we need to find it. So in all our to-dos, we need to find an item whose ID is equal to our to-do ID. Does it make sense? And then the next thing I need to do, I need to update that value to the inverse of it. Like itakuwa something like, if it was false, ikuwe true. Something like that. Does it make sense up to there?
Yeah, we are following along, yeah.
Yeah, so I nikisha update, the next thing I need to do, I think I need to push the new update. So sijui mbona iko ina work. So here what I'm doing, I think it's called, is it mutation? Like updating a value like directly, which is not a good idea also. But so we need to push the new update, which will be the set to dos and then the all to dos. Then let's see if it works. Yeah, I think it works. I don't know if, yeah, it works. So no, true, false, true, false, true, false. It's updating. Kama ilikuwa false inakuwa true. Like we are able to keep track of kama mtu amecheck ama hajacheck. So the last task, we need to implement this feature of removing an item. And we said we are just filtering. We're just returning items zenye zitakuwa completed. For that, I think it's simpler. So we can add an on-click event here and basically have it, I'll call it maybe remove item, and then maybe have remove item function here. And then for the item, I think we need basically removing all the completed task. So we don't need like any parameter. And then what do we need? I think we just need to return the filtered items, the items that don't have, I don't know if I'm making sense. So I'm trying to remove all the completed tasks. All the completed task refers to tasks that we have checked their box. So let's say reading, I'm adding reading, and then coding, sindio? And then unaona by default, tujamaliza, we have not checked them, they are false. And then if you click it, hiyo inakuwa true. And then if you click this one, I don't know if I'm making sense. And then the next thing that we need to do, so we now have a way of knowing kama tumecheck something. By having a way of knowing like nimecheki, sijacheki, we are able to remove vitu zote zenye tumecheck. So ndio maana tuko na that function ya kuremove completed task. So I think we will now have like a new to-dos. They can call it new to-dos. Then our new to-dos will be basically, I don't know if it's possible to destructure and filter at the same time. Hopefully it will be possible. Then maybe we can filter. So we'll get access to a to-do, and then we'll just check a to-do. We will filter to-dos zenye ni false. I don't know if I'm making false. I'm making sense. So zenye ni false, ndio tutazifilter. And then basically we need to update the new to-dos. So itakuwa something like our setter function. So itakuwa set to-dos. Then we are adding new to-dos. Hopefully it works. Let's see. I'm not sure. Hopefully, so let's say really. Then if I remove, nothing is happening. And then click it, I remove, it's being removed. So adding this last part, ndio najua itakuwa tricky, but I'll provide the code and also the recording so that maybe you can take a look at it on your own at your own convenience. So I think all the functionalities works. So if you click remove, nothing is being removed. If you click here, remove. And then if you, I think the issue here, I don't know if you saw that. If you click remove sahi, it's not removing it. Nani ameona that issue?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the issue might be it's because we are destructuring there. And then another issue, let acha niangalie the tagline if it's okay, the logic. So we have like a tagline here where we are destructuring all the to-dos, and then we're finding the to-do that we want. I don't know if I'm passing the tagline. I don't think that will be an issue. Maybe we can just I'm trying to see where the issue might be, Butagla. I'm passing the tagline here, hitting the tagline here correctly. Then here, I'm just passing the ID. Then for the ID, I think issue upon ID because everything is one. that was the issue that I was telling you about. So everything works. Sorry about that. Everything works correctly, but the reason we are getting that bug, it's because our implementation is gonna this issue of our IDs. Basically, we are using our ID to remove items here. If you think about it, but sasa our IDs are all the same. So hata nikiclick hiyo ni remove hiyo, it's either it's going to remove Abu ama remove ama ingine because everything is the same here. Zote ziko same. I think we can just install this UID and use it. I don't think it's going to take a lot of time. 1 minute, very fast. Ndio tupate like unique IDs. So you can just do install UID and then just import it up here. I think it's this one. Then if you copy it, and then on our ID, we can have unique IDs just by doing UID v4. It's actually very easy. Just calling that as a function. It's going to provide that one. Will not find UID v4. Just like that, you will have, I think, unique IDs. Let us try again and see if everything is working. Above, add a task, allay, add a task, click a task, remove a task. So it's working. So I'm going to share the source code and the video at the end and also the presentation if you are really interested. So the main idea of this session today is basically to just give you a brief overview on what you can do with the React and show you the reactivity that React has and the power of React. So on our consecutive like sessions on React, we're going to go like have a deep dive on the patterns that you may need to know. One important pattern that I really highly recommend you to go and learn, it's called the composition pattern. It's going to help you a lot. Like unaona hapa the prop training that we are doing in our code, you won't do that. And also you won't need external like state management tools like Redux or like zinakwanga mingi, I don't know them. Mimi najua tu Redux. You won't need them. With the composition pattern whereby like you handle everything as a children, you're going to leverage the power of like the real React utatumia external state management tools. So maybe I can just type it here and then you can take a look at that pattern on your own. So I'm planning on having, I think, another session on React possibly next month. where we will have like a deep dive into this pattern, and you will get to understand them like on a deeper way. For this session today, I just wanted us to just have a brief overview on what React can do, so that after this, I hope you are motivated to go learn on your own. With programming, you just have to take the initiative on your own and learn it. So that's it for my end. I hope you've learned something from it. I know I was really fast. Yeah. And then for the theory, I'll share the slides and everything on the WhatsApp group. So if you have not joined our mentorship group, you can join it from the link shared by Humphrey here. Thank you once again, everyone, for being part of this session. Yeah. Any question on your end? And I think we can leave it at that. Does anyone have any question? No question. I think that means that mumelewa ama mjelewa kitu. There's only two possibility. Mumelewa kila kitu ama mjelewa anything. Yeah, if you have any question, like just ask, don't worry. Yeah, no question. So thank you once again for attending this session. This week we have a number of sessions. Like on Wednesday, we have introduction to Node.js by, I think it's Eli, if you know him. And also on Thursday, we also have another event relating to GraphQL. I don't know if I'm correct. So please attend them. Please attend them. And if you have any question, reach out to me. I'm in the WhatsApp group. Just call me anytime or text me and I'll gladly help. Thank you once again. Maybe I can give my Humphrey a chance to talk to you guys. Thank you.
Okay, so hello everyone. Okay, thank you, Bakan, for such a wonderful presentation. I hope everyone has learned something about React from the last session that we had on JavaScript, and now we have had a beginner session on React. I believe now someone can start a project for him or herself to start from beginner and come up with a fully functional website using React.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Humphrey. Bye, everyone. Have a nice day. Stay safe. See you again on Wednesday. Bye.